As an artist, I'm self-taught. I was passionate of literature and philosophy and went to study humanities. Then I did a translation and intercultural communication school. Although I always drew from when I was a child, from the end of high school to my master's degree, I used to write and rather envision myself as a writer. It was only when getting my master's degree and starting to work as a freelance translator specialized in art that I had enough free time on my end to start develop my own artistic body of work and move away from writing. I think that having primarily a background in humanities studies and not having gone to art school had a big impact on the kind of artist I am today. Because for me, the starting point wasn't making things and learning different techniques to do different things. Rather, it all started with subject matters that I was magnetically drawn to, questions that haunted me about life and human experience. At first, literature and philosophy were the primary ways to explore those issues, but then through arts, I could express my own take on it. I could actually make something out of my inner conflictual material. From the beginning, it was always a transformative psychological process. I needed to do something with my inner chaos and struggle, and only afterwards did the technical question arose of, okay, now, what form should I give it? What's the right medium? What's the right process? Etc. I didn't become an artist because I had talent from the start at making things. At least I don't think I did. But I had an urge to express stuff from the inside, outside. And then I found the proper material form to do so. You're always informed by your family and upbringing, one way or the other. In my case, I come from a family where art was appreciated, but not considered a proper career to pursue. It was too unstable, too unpredictable, especially from a financial standpoint. Both my parents were civil servants, one working as a judge and the other in the police. So the main values I was taught was obedience, order, structure, and responsibility, and not really self-expression, creativity, innovation, or thinking outside the box. Given my parents' profession, I was introduced very early to the ethical question of good and evil, as both my parents were confronted on a daily basis to the dark side of society. Their job was to prevent people from doing bad things or judging them after they did. So as a child, I was very aware that the world was a dangerous place filled with dangerous people. I believe that this family setting met an inborn interest in me for the dark side of life, wanting to explore the hidden in society, but primarily in oneself. As I always felt that everything happening on the grand stage of society starts in the privacy of one's own life and heart. In other words, the tension at play in people's unconscious. Today, I describe my art practice as exploring the shadow parts of ourselves and our relationship with others, and the way in which our inner conflicts get reflected into the world. I believe then that I continue in the footstep of my parents and the issues they tackled in their own careers, but in my own way. First and foremost, I would say my biggest influences are thinkers and novelists, because I really started as passionate of literature and a big reader, which I still am today. So I could name so many. I mean, Émile Zola, Marcel Proust, Charles Baudelaire, Albert Cohen, as far as novelists and poets are concerned. In the philosophy department, I love Pascal, Emmanuel Levinas, Immanuel Kant, to name just a few. But then more recently, I discovered and dived into psychoanalysis and analytical psychology, which is definitely my main passion today, with the discovery of the work of Carl Gustav Jung, Otto Rank, Marie-Louise von France, and many other contemporary Jungian psychoanalysts, which I read eagerly today. But in the art world, one of my main influences is definitely Salvador Dali, which work in life I have always found absolutely fascinating and know very well, because I had the chance and the opportunity to work in two of the biggest Dali museums in the world. so I'm very familiar with his work from the inside. And to me, his technical mastery only matched his seemingly infinite scope of interest and his desire to understand the world, rooted in the Freudian discovery of the unconscious and the place of dream in one's psyche and creative process. I would say what I'm focusing on right now is the big picture. As I said, Marcel Proust is one of my favorite writers, and he used to describe writing his immense literary work as building a cathedral. The architectural metaphor was a way of saying that the final edifice was the concretization of a long-term plan in which every part fit together into a coherent and beautiful whole. What it means is that he had written the end of In Search of Lost Time, which is his magnus opus, at the same time as the beginning. And then he wrote the in-between, and he spent years bridging the gap. So he knew exactly where the whole thing was going from the very beginning. Every novel was hyperlinked with the totality of the work. I always loved that image and that approach, because I know that's the kind of artist I am. So I'm lucky enough now to reach this point in my artistic path where I see things clearly enough that I can consciously plan for the whole architecture and put the thread together and start planning for the whole structure to eventually make sense when one day it's finished. The advice I would give to my younger self would probably be to grow some teeth and stand firmer on my ground, and especially looking for the right people instead of losing time with the wrong ones. But other than that, frankly, the main advice for any artist is grind. Don't give up, because it's a long-term game. I would say the biggest challenge of being an artist is definitely making money, let's be honest. If I had been interested in money, I would clearly have chosen another path in life, but having or lacking financial security is in the end a deal breaker for many artists. If you have to do small jobs to pay your bills next to your artistic production, just cannot dive as far into yourself as you would if you were dedicating 100% of your time to your work. But so few artists have this luxury. So it's a tough road. Many are called and few chosen. And to that you can add all of the adversaries that you meet on the way, which are all the people in the art world who try to make money out of you and exploit the fact that you'll pretty much do anything to pursue your artistic vocation. I wouldn't say I have tried unconventional mediums or techniques so far, but what I would say is that I use known and existing technique, but in unconventional ways, because I don't pretend to reinvent any wheel, although I inject innovation into tradition, like when creating layered images and composition, either through the use of plexiglass or epoxy resin. So the medium per se are not revolutionary, but the way I integrate them into my art practice is unconventional, because they are not generally used this way. I have always something in my ears while I paint. It greatly varies from audiobooks, lectures, conferences, and podcasts on the topics I am interested in, to all sorts of music, from tribal and instrumental to classical music and pop music. Although I would say my recent favorite has become shamanic vocals, which I can listen for literally hours and basically get in the zone and in my favorite flow state. The main thing I would like people to take away from my work, I think, is the very inner and intimate experience of meeting someone and having been met and seen on a deep human level. Yeah, I have many upcoming events, starting with a big duo show in Lyon, opening on May 22nd. Then I have a new street art festival that I will take part in the region of Valencia in Spain, late May, early June. Then I have a group show in Lisbon, Portugal, with a new gallery, at the same time as another group show in the area of Lausanne in Switzerland. and possibly another wall and mural in Serbia. So I have a pretty full schedule for the months to come. And you can find me on Instagram at Hélène Planquelle.